Welcome everybody, this is RadioRebelEars.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening to the podcast on Anchor.fm, and everybody who's listening on the YouTube channel too, watching us. I want to thank all of our sponsored listeners for funding the channel. I want to thank everybody who just, taking the time. You might be driving, taking a walk, might be working out. I'm thankful that y'all taking the time to listen on my insights, past credits, what I worked on, and what's going on now. So the few things that we're going to be talking about today: Ransom 2, putting out your music, and we're talking about recording revolution. So we'll start off with Ransom 2. So a lot of people are familiar who Mike Will Made-It is. So for the people who are not familiar with him, he produced a lot of hits from 2 Chainz and Drake's No Lie, Ray Shrimmer and Gucci Mane's Black Beatles, Beyonce's Formation, Miley Cyrus Project Bangers, and the list goes on. Katy Perry, Migos, I can go on. So Ransom 2 is his project. So he released this in 2017, and it has a lot of credits: Big Sean, Young Thug, Migos, Lil Yachty, Ray Shrimmer, Kendrick Lamar, Gucci Mane. And I was actually honored to work on this project. So if people don't know, my mentor is Steve Hybicki. So Steve Hybicki is a dope recording mixing engineer, multi-platinum, plaque engineer, gold, all that. And the way that we met before I go into Ransom 2 was when I was interning at Castle Hill Studio. So I met him at Castle Hill Studio when I was interning there, but I told him my experience at SAE. And he was actually one of the guest speakers at one of our seminars we have every Monday at SAE. They brought in a speaker, so they might be studio owners, producers, engineers, publishers, and I try to go every Monday when I had a chance. And it was always beneficial to hear other people's insight on the industry, what they was going through. And then it was interesting when Steve was speaking, because he opened up this session. I'm trying to remember if it was Love Me, Lil Wayne, Future, and Drake. And he was just showing us what he was doing on it. And it really captured me. And he asked if anybody wanted to take over, like record. And I raised my hand. He probably don't even remember this, but I raised my hand. He picked me. And from there, I was like, you know what? I really want to work with this guy. So while interning at Castle Hill Studios, where Dan Cohen and Max Unruh own, their friend was Steve Hybicki. Well, they're still friends. And it was just a random night. Steve was up there. I forgot why he was up there. He wasn't really working with no artist or producer. I guess he was just in the area. And he was talking to Max. Or was it Dan? It was years ago, but it was good times because I learned a lot from just watching the aspects of how the business is ran as an intern. So one night when Steve was there, I just took the chance, talked to him about, hey, how you doing? Do you remember me from SAE? Of course, he said no. He deals with a lot of people, so I wasn't surprised. But we started talking, and he was telling me how he was looking for an assistant engineer, because the one that he was working with, I really don't know what was going on. I don't know if it was scheduling issues or if things wasn't getting done on time. It was something, but he was telling me he was looking for one. So I told him that I was interested. And like I was telling people, the first track that he sent me to work on was Ray Shrimmer's By Chance. And, it was very dope to see like a song that's been out on the radio, a project that got a plaque. It's just very interesting on like opening the session, watching the cuts, the takes, watching how they have it set up from the tracks, the sends, the master track, all that, because, I'm just thankful that he actually took the time to help me to build. But before we even started working on Mike Will's project Ransom 2, I had to sign an NDA. So it's a non-disclosure agreement. So basically, around the time when the project was coming out, I couldn't talk to anybody about the song that was being released, anybody about what was going on. So Ransom 2 is basically, like I was saying, it was Mike Will's project. A lot of artists was on there, a lot of producers. Well, Mike Will put his hand on all the projects. So I'll go through a list of the songs that I actually worked on. So What You Want with Young Thug, Hasselhoff with Lil Yachty. The one that took some time to do that I was surprised on was Gucci on Mine. So it has 21 Savage, YG, and Migos. And Oh Hi Haters with Fortune, Bars of Soap with Sway Lee, Emotion Unlocked by Ears, and that was it. And the thing that was amazing about the project was the time it took, the song arrangement. That was the biggest thing. Steve was talking to me about how Mike is very big on song arrangements. From like, he was telling me stories about Black Beatles when they had so many different takes, because you know, when you're working on a project, especially when it's working for a major label, you want to release the best project. You want to release the best quality. So it's going to take time. So you just don't want to put anything out to the world that you're not really comfortable on. I tell people, when it comes to music, especially if you're going to put out an album, go ahead and think more on the song arrangements. So with the song arrangement, you really want to work on what you can. So you might be working with a producer, you can get the track outs, you're working with another artist on the song. So you might be the first verse, he might be the second verse, there's no bridge, no vocalist. And then as time goes by, you might be, you know what, let me switch it out. Let him be the first verse, I'm gonna be the second verse, I'm gonna put a bridge here. There's an intro. You know, you really gotta think of how you're gonna bring the picture out as an artist, right? So when it comes to that, song arrangement is very big to me. All right, I learned that from Mike Will, learned that from Steve, and just working with a lot of different artists and producers in the studio from different sessions is very big. So, you know, if you're gonna put out a project, take your time, think about the song arrangement, because a lot of people really doubt the ability of capturing the audience. Don't just put out a track that just has like, well, you know, basically nowadays it's just hook, verse, hook. No second verse, no third verse. Nowadays you don't really hear a lot of third verse unless it's like a feature. But when it comes to that, you know, think about it that way. So Gucci on Mine with 21 Savage, YG, and Migos. So the funny thing about that project, it was sent through different sessions. So because, you know, with artists, you're not going to catch everybody in the same studio at the same time. So you got to think about what is possible. So with today's technology, you know, an artist can be in one studio and another artist can be at another one, right? So how it started off, it was, I remember I had 21's hook, Gucci on My, with, I believe it was YG's verse. And then when it came to Migos, it was Quavo and Takeoff's verse. Offset verse didn't come in yet. It was actually, I think 2 weeks or 1 week before Ransom 2 came out. And it was just funny because, you know, it was 3 different sessions and I just saw it grow from, you know, Steve was telling me, okay, it's going to be a lot of song arrangements on this song, so just be prepared. So I really didn't know what he meant by that because I saw it before, but actually being a part of it, I learned a whole lot. So from 21's hook to YG's verse, you know, it was placed at the beginning because I remember it was, let me see who was first. It was 21 Savage verse first, and then it was Quavo, Takeoff, then Offset when Offset verse came in, and then YG ended it. I'm trying to remember the song arrangement because it was changed so many times, but it was fun to just learn like the different plugins that each artist was using, the different effects that I learned from Steve, the processing, the printing, because when you're working on a big session with a lot of track outs and a lot of artists, you got to print them, you got to do a lot of printing. So printing is basically printing the plugins within the track. So good example. Okay, let's say if you have EQ and compressed the vocals, right? And you have a little reverb, a little delay in there. But the thing is, you don't want to have to use all those plugins because it can, you know, mess with the processing from, you know, the session going slow. It just really helps the flow of the session to go smoothly. So basically, you create another track, right? And you have the actual track you recorded on. The input would be like, I'm trying to remember if it would be like bus 1 and 2. The output of the actual track with all the plugins, the output would probably be like 1 and 2 also. And then what would you do is you would print the track that has input bus 1 and 2. So when you press record, all the effects are printed. They're recorded in. So after you record it, you can already go to the track that has all the effects on it that's not printed in. You can bypass it, right? And you can just bypass it, hide it, so you don't really have to worry about it unless you have to open the session up and fix it up. It's just very convenient that way, right? So with that, it was really easy to just go off and work with printing. Steve would tell me like, I want all the tracks printing. So the reason to get the tracks printed, let's say the song is going to be on a commercial, right? You got to think of it this way. Not every studio is going to have the same plugins, okay? So that's why you got to have it printed so they can go ahead and play it. The effects is already in there. They don't have to find anything. Everything is organized, and it just makes it very convenient if it needs to be played on a radio, commercial, films. You give them the prints, don't really have to worry about anything. If you have to do any editing, you can open the session up if necessary. And when it comes to the session, you always want to take the time to name the session. Okay, so let's say Steve sent me a session, right? I'm going to name it at the end of the session. I'm going to just put RAI. That just shows that I worked on it, because you never want to get a session from somebody, actually work on the session, save it, don't change the name of it. And then they like, oh man, you know what? I like the original. Now you can't go back to the original because the original is now the new edited version that you didn't even change the name of. So anytime you get a track from an artist or an engineer or producer, make sure to name it or put number one after it, just to make it simple when you open up the track, okay? And all the other tracks from What You Want with Young Thug, Hasselhoff with Lil Yachty, it was very easy because it wasn't that big of a song arrangement, because it was just singles. And with those tracks, all I really had to do was some manual de-essing. So instead of using a plugin called a de-esser that actually take the sibilants out of the track, like s or test, you hear that? I would actually have to manually take those out. So what I have to do was basic automation. So a de-esser is basically a plugin. Like I said, it takes the sibilants out from a range that's in the high frequency. That could be from 5K to 20K. So you just really want to take out as much as you need to. But the thing about using the plugin, it takes some frequencies out that I learned from Steve. And you really want to keep the natural harmonics of the track itself. So what he would tell me was literally go into the volume and manually dip in and take out the parts. So when it came to the manual de-essing, it was as simple as, using volume automation. You would actually, at the part where the S's come in, you can see the waveform, because as time went by, I started to recognize what a S looked like. Like you could see like the expansion of the wave until it like the tail end of it. And it was just very convenient for me to just start automating it without having to hear the track. So with that, it was simple, like negative 3 dB to 4 dB, making a natural curve and then bringing it back. So the S would be like test. It'll be like test with the T added, but it would sound more natural because, the natural human's voice is not heard on the actual track because, of course, you're going to, do some editing from EQ and compression, effects like reverb, delay, and it's just very convenient. And it was just good to learn how to do that from the session. Okay? So now what we're going to talk about is putting your music out. So you probably have like a lot of productions you worked on for years. You're an artist, you have songs for days. You never release anything, and that's a problem. The reason why that's a problem because you're letting it sit there. How are you going to release your music to the world if you're not comfortable with your voice or your production? You really need to go ahead and take the time to realize that if you are afraid to put your music out, you're the only person who's going to hear it, unless your family and friends that you let them hear or your coworker. You need to really think about your music career. What you're going to do? Are you just going to sit down and just hope for something to happen? Or are you going to take the initiative, get with DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, and just put your music out? Because a lot of people like to sit on music and then they regret it as years go by, thinking about, look, I could have been the next Drake, or I could have been the next Metro Boomin or Mike Will, 808 Mafia. murder beats. It doesn't really matter because in the end, you're not doing your part. So who you gonna get mad at? The world or yourself? Okay? So take this time right now. If you have a song that you're comfortable with, put it out before the end of the week. If you don't have a TuneCore account or a DistroKid account or a CD Baby account, look it up, do your research, get comfortable on which one you want to sign up to. And then also, when it comes to PROs, your publishing right organization, now that's something separate. We'll get more on the lines of that in the future. That's basically the companies that helps you to secure your royalties. So the top 3 in America are ASCAP, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, SESAC. And those companies, you know, ASCAP, it costs. It's worth it. BMI is free to look into. Like I said, it's basically to help when it comes to royalties. So as time goes by, we'll start talking more about royalties, mechanical royalties, making sure your split sheets are in order, making sure that if you're working with a producer, that it's legit, that you actually have authorization to use the productions, because there's so many sessions where an artist will get a song off YouTube, they'll put it out, and then they get sued by the producer because they're not authorized to use it. They download the beat, thought that they can just use it, and then they're upset when they can't even use it, so it's on them. But even with that, you know, you got to make sure that you're doing your part. If you're going to be successful, you need to take the time to put out the music, okay? So that's something to think on as well, okay? So when it comes to your music, make sure you're doing your part. And nowadays, you got to be on social media every day, especially if you're trying to be a successful artist. Because if you're not on tour, how are people going to know your music? How are people going to differentiate you from one artist to the next, right? How are you going to be able to tour? The way you can tour is for people to hear your music, but also to see visuals, to see you actually in the studio, to see you actually working with a producer, to see you actually like coming up with content. Because what happened as time goes by, your fans are getting older, and you spending like 4 or 5 years on this one project saying that's going to be the biggest project out, and then when it comes out, no one's really listening to it, and that's your fault. So in the end, do your part, okay? So right now we're gonna go to Recorded Revolution. So recordedrevolution.com is a website by Graham Cochrane. It's how you can learn how to do home recording, home mixing, even mastering. He is a very talented engineer. His website was recommended by Dave Pensado. If you know about music, one of the biggest engineers in the industry, in my opinion. Legend, Warren Urko. You know, it's a lot of people who recommend this website because not just for its knowledge, but also with the willingness of Graham to actually put his insight on how you can better yourself as an engineer. If you're at home, there's no limitations. You can do anything you want. You just got to take the time to do it. So with this website, you can actually learn how to record techniques, mixing and mastering. He even has earning income. So there's free tutorials, free guides. And then I'm not going to lie. In the beginning, when I was going to SAE, I was researching different websites, and his website was the main website I always go to. He has YouTube videos. He has blogs, and it was very insightful. He got, like I said, free guides for better recording, mixing. He has a YouTube, Facebook, Twitter account. Some of his free video guys, you know, build a $350 home recording studio. Now, you can't beat that. You got to understand, like, if you're really going to invest in yourself, invest right. If you don't have the money up front right now, thinking of, like, you got to get $1 million studio, that is not true. You just need to invest in the right equipment, because he can show you what you need to invest in. Because, like, speakers, like, I got a pair of Mackie CR3s, and they are very convenient. They are used for their flat frequency response. They're used for, you know, referencing a mix, because you always want to reference from different speakers. So you have your near fields, you have your monitors, you have your headphones, you have your laptop speakers, you have your car's stereo system, you got to think, even your smartphone, everybody is listening to music on different sound systems. So you got to think of it that way. And then also on recordingrevolution.com, he has free videos about how to record a song from scratch, mix a song from scratch, the simple guide to EQ, the simple guide to compression. And then he also has a free, 6 steps to record a radio ready song, free access. You put your email in, you part of the email list, and you go from there. I joined his email list years ago, and I still read his blogs, watch his videos till this day because in society you always want to stay ahead of the curve. You always want to know about the new equipment coming out, the new plugins, the new song that's out, the new wave. You want to stay ahead. You never want to be comfortable. So that's the biggest thing. Do not be comfortable, okay? If y'all hearing, that's my son. He's with me during the podcast. I love the freedom that I have, just being able to be at home with my son, but also to bring y'all value. So I want to thank everybody from Rebel Ears, everybody who's listening, our sponsors, and I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Rebel Ears channel. Thank you for following us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rebel Ears, Instagram. We have 2 accounts, rai.rebelears, Rebel Ears ATL. You can go to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe. If there's anything you don't like, let me know because I always want to, deliver content that people can actually grow on and use for the future because that's the point we're in this to, educate the next generation. And I'm just thankful for everything I learned from Steve Hybicki, Mike Will Made-It, Dan Cohen, Max Unruh. And I don't take anything for granted because, there's times when you want to learn, but you're not given, access. So if you do have access, take advantage to the fullest. And if you don't have access, find a way to. If you can listen to me, that means you can do something. You have a smartphone. You might have a laptop. You listening on some system that you can use to benefit yourself for the future. If you feel like you have a voice, go on anchor.fm, make your own podcast. If you feel like the world needs to hear your story, start a blog. If you want people to hear your music, put your music out. If you feel like people need to, know about you, let them. All right? So do what you need to do. Take the time to work consistently on your craft because I'm working on my craft to this day. As you can see, I'm in front of a camera. I'm on a microphone. I got the room set up. But the thing is, it's a learning process. Until I grow from having multiple people working with me, understanding my methods, it's always going to be set up in a way that I'm comfortable with. I have people I work with, but it's just so convenient to do it from the comfort of your home because I'm scheduling my time because I want to put my value in for the people who's listening to me because I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook talking to different producers, artists. I was talking to this one artist and he was telling me that he doesn't have the equipment to do what he needs to do. So I was telling him, did he ever think about interning at a studio? Because that's how I learned. Before, I went to SAE and I got the Mac, I got the equipment, but I really didn't know how to, run a session until I started interning because, you interning one day and then at the end of the day, the owner might be like, you want to run this session for me? I got to get something to eat. Or you want to run this session? I got to go to the next studio because they have multiple studios. And that just encouraged me to build a home studio and then renting a studio out in the near future. But, when the opportunity comes around, take advantage because, if I did not take the advantage of talking to Steve or started interning, I wouldn't be where I am today, being able to give you insight on working on projects that was released to the world, released on the radio, music videos too. And, day by day, I'm just thankful for, being able to do this for y'all. So the longer y'all listen, the longer I'll keep recording these videos, these podcasts, get y'all, to know more about Ray and going to start doing some interviews soon. Going to be bringing people up that's going to really bring y'all more insight from working with Grammy award-winning engineers to artists who have their music on films, commercials, getting your license. So there's a lot we're going to be talking about. But again, I want to thank everybody who's listening to the podcast, watching YouTube. Like, again, subscribe, like, put the notification on. If you're listening on a podcast, I would really appreciate it if you listen to us weekly. We're going to be having a podcast every Tuesday and Thursday. I didn't have the day set up, but just letting you know it's going to be every Tuesday and Thursday. And we're just going to be, bringing a lot of content for y'all. Going to be doing interviews soon. And I just want to thank everybody from Rebel Ears. Keep tuning in.